into another edition of Bet. I'm Anita Marks, your host on this Friday afternoon, getting you ready for a big weekend and, of course, a Monday night national championship game between TCU and Georgia. Nick Freidell is going to join us momentarily from the Big Easy, New Orleans. I used to live there for a few years. Can't wait to hear how Nick is living large. Of course, we'll have Seth Greenberg, who's going to join us, talk a little college hoops, and getting you ready for the the Saturday games. I forgot, it's January. There's Saturday games now instead of Thursday. But let's bring in Nick Freidell. We take you to New Orleans, who's joining us. We'll talk some NBA with Nick. Nick, how you doing? Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year, Anita. It's a party down here. I missed it, but nothing changes down in New Orleans. It's always a blast.
Absolutely. Just about a month away from, the big festivities taking place. But as always, we like to start the show with the good word. I know you've played this with me before. Here we go. Get locked and loaded. Number one, Kyle Shanahan now is the favorite to win Coach of the Year at plus 180. Nick Sirianni is right behind him at plus 175. What's your good word?
Anita, it's whisper. This guy always finds a way. Shanahan always finds a way to make it work, no matter who is in his lineup, no matter who is playing quarterback. The players respond to him. It is very clear offensively. He is a cut above everybody else. The Niners are going to be right there in the end, as they usually are, and such a huge reason for that is because of Shanahan.
One correction, Sirianni is 2-1, hence why he is not the favorite and Kyle is. My good word is blue, as in big blue, baby. Give me Brian Daboll. Why not at plus 225? Listen, what Daboll has been able to do here in New York with the Giants has been remarkable, right? Like winning with not a lot, okay? Darius Slayton, Richie James, Hodgins. Do you have them on your fantasy team? Because I certainly don't. He has resurrected Daniel Jones's career in the NFL, where now we're talking about give that young man an extension. Also, Nick, he has changed the organizational culture with the New York Football Giants. I mean, they were a complete mess, from Gettleman, of course, to a number of the coaches that were here before him, and Judge, and McAdoo, and Pat Shurmur. So all that Daboll has been able to do, working with less, Kyle Shanahan, Sirianni, they've got an all-star roster. So for me, it is Big Blue and is Brian Daboll at plus 225. North Dakota State going up against South Dakota State in the FCS title game. North Dakota State is a dog, getting 5.5. So, and this is going to be played on Sunday. What's your good word?
Anita, it's hard. They always are there. They have always been at the top of the line here. If you're their coaching staff, all you're doing in preparation for this game is saying nobody respects you. Nobody thinks you can do it. Nobody believes you can keep rolling the way you have for so long. This is their moment to show one more time that they are the best of the best. It's all going to come down to heart, and I wouldn't put it past them to make it happen.
Yeah, my good word is Bison, because that's who they are. And you're absolutely right. So they've lost to them earlier this season. In fact, they've lost their last 3 games to South Dakota State. But since that loss, I feel that they have been the better team. And the Jackrabbits, they're going to have to stop North Dakota State's rushing game. That's been really superb, averaging 275 rushing yards per game. So the Fargo kids definitely have dominated Frisco. I just think the line is too large here. So I will take North Dakota State with the points. Number 3, the Nets. Now this is more up your alley. The Nets, 6-1 to win the title. Milwaukee, of course, for the second best, tied with Milwaukee for the second best odds to win the NBA title. Nick, you covered this team better than anyone. What's your good word?
Drama. Anita, the Nets always are a league leader in drama. So the question, if you're laying money down on this one, is do you believe they can keep the drama away throughout the course of the rest of the season? And can Kevin Durant play like the MVP that he's been? Can Kyrie continue his focus being on the floor, playing well, not causing a distraction off of it? I've been around this team for about a year. I've been in it every day with them. That is not a bet I would feel comfortable making. But if you believe the drama can stay away, then go for it.
My good word is Brooklyn in the house. Nick, I like this. I'm running to the window. And again, you covered this team. You've got your finger on the pulse of this team better than most. I'm here in the New York tri-state area. I've been following this team, and what a huge surprise considering all the drama, and that's your good word, they experienced in the offseason from, of course, Kyrie and Katie wanting the trade and then changing the coaching. And it's just, who would have thunk that they would be here right now? And we're talking about Katie, not only the Nets potentially, possibly winning a championship this year, but Katie winning the MVP. He's averaging 30 points a game. So Brooklyn in the house, be careful in the postseason. I think they could bring it home for sure. All right, let's talk about some of the NBA games on the slate tonight, and let's start with the Nets. They are favored by 4.5 going up against the Pelicans. The over-unders at 230.5. How are you playing this one?
Anita, give me the over. This Nets team is high-powered offensively, but there are times, as was the case the other night in Chicago against the Bulls, they fall in the trap of, this team likes to run up and down. We'll run up and down too. We don't need to play defense. We've got Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I think the Nets can win this game. I just think that it is going to be a track meet running back and forth. So if it's me, I'm taking that over, and I'm thinking that both of these teams, even without Zion and some of the injuries the Pelicans are dealing with, are going to have a free-flowing style and really try to run it up in the second half.
Okay, so you take the over. I'm going to take the Nets. I'll lay the 4.5. Listen, they lost to the Bulls last night, and I think this is a bounce-back game for them. That was their first loss, by the way, since November 25th. And when you look at the statistics, 12 of 37 from deep. Royce O'Neal, as you know, coming off of that COVID illness that he did have. He was 0 for 8 last night. That's not going to happen again. We know that. No Zion, no Ingram. So obviously, I think the Pelicans are going to be suffering on the defensive side of the court. And as we know, the Nets have the best defense in the NBA. So I'm going to lay the points with the Nets tonight. Game number 2, you got the Bulls going right against the 76ers. 76ers favored by 4.5. The over-under is 231. No Embiid tonight, Nick. How are you playing this one in the city of brotherly love?
Anita, it would be so easy to say, there's no Embiid. He has owned the Bulls for so long. Maybe this is the time for them to finally get a win against Philadelphia. I'm not buying it. I don't think the Bulls are consistent enough. I don't think that they can piece together everything they're going to need, even without the big fella down low. I am still taking Philly in this game, and I think they will find a way because it's muscle memory. They own the Bulls. Even without Embiid, they will make something happen, and Doc Rivers will get a win against his hometown team.
Well, I am opposite you in this one, my friend. Give me the Bulls. Give me the points for a number of reasons. Listen, this is a Bulls team. Again, we just talked about it a second ago. Really impressive, beating the Nets last night. Big win on the road for them as well against Boston, against Milwaukee. So this is a team, even though their road record isn't great, they step up on the big stage against the really good teams. So you got to like that. 76ers, they're looking for their 12th straight home win. But I do believe not having Embiid is going to affect them on the defensive side of the ball. Another thing is they're not great with mid-range jumpers. DeRozan, to me, is going to be arguably the best player on the court tonight. So I like over points for DeRozan, and that's at 26.5. He averages 29 points on the road as well. So I'm going to take the Bulls and the points. Also, probably my favorite bet is DeRozan over 26.5 points tonight. Last but not least, before we let you go, I know you got to live large in the Big Easy. The Cavs going up against the Nuggets. The Nuggets favored by 6.5. This line has been coming down. The over-under is at 220. How are you playing it?
Anita, I know it's coming down, but I'm still going over. I watched that Cavs team about a week ago. They like to move. And Donovan Mitchell, we know he can score. We know that they can get hot if they get into a rhythm early. I think it's possible that those guys can have a big night against the Denver team with Jokic and with the pieces that they have in place that has the ability to play that up and down style. So I know where the number's going. I like to go the opposite of where everybody seems to be moving. I think it'll hit the over, and I think when you start running with that group, they kind of look around and go, all right, well, we'll do it for a little bit and see what happens.
So I do believe Denver wins, but I do believe the Cavs cover. So give me the Cavs. Actually, I got this line at 7.5. I'm still going to play it at 5.5. They've won 3 straight, as you said. D. Mitch was just on fire with an unbelievable night he had on Monday. Meanwhile, Denver, this is their second of a back-to-back. I was watching that game against the Clippers last night. Boy, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard took the bench immediately in the second half because they knew the game was out of control. This is Denver team. They play really great at home. Again, I do believe Denver wins, but I do like Cleveland to cover. Nick, this is where we say hasta la vista, my friend. You have a fantastic weekend, and again, enjoy the Big Easy.
I will, and it's always great to be with you. I'll talk to you soon.
You got it. So we go from Nick to Seth Greenberg. Seth, how you doing? So great to see you. You know, it's around that time of year. Like, you know, we spend so much time talking and preparing and studying and analyzing the NFL and college football. We thought it'd be great to have you come in and get us up to speed on what's going on in college basketball. And let's start with Purdue. As we know, ranked number 1 in the country, but upset by Rutgers this past week. So obviously those lines are going to change on Monday. With that being said, who do you think should be ranked number 1 come Monday afternoon?
Well, who's going to be ranked number 1 is going to be Houston, and they're going to be there probably the rest of the season because Houston's got the greatest and the easiest path to the overall number 1 seed. If you think about the American Athletic Conference, you saw what they did to SMU yesterday, absolutely whacked them. But, you know, excluding maybe Memphis, I don't see a roadblock in front of them. So they can legitimately run the table. Obviously have the 1 loss at home to Alabama. Alabama's a really good basketball team. But as they're in this conference, the American Conference, they're going to the Big 12 next year. I'm not sure anyone can play with them. Jarvis Walker was absolutely terrific yesterday, 25 points. The freshman kind of puts them over the top in a lot of ways. He's a freak athlete, had 29 and I think 10. If they get consistent play and he learns how to play hard and compete all the time with the backcourt they have, with the experience they have, that this Houston team will be the overall number 1 pick. I'm not a gambling dude, but I'll tell you one thing. If I was going to say who's for sure going to be a number 1 seed, I'd put money on Houston.
All right, you might not be a gambling dude, but put your handicap hat on right now. We're going to show you the odds in the NCAA. Who's going to win the national championship? Let's take a look. And we've got Houston, who, of course, you just talked about, favored at 7-1. Arizona 8-1. Look at UCLA's in there as well. Kentucky and Gonzaga 15-1. North Carolina rounding it out back there at 20-1. So looking at these, the top 10 and the odds, what's the scariest team on this list for you, Seth?
Well, to me, if I wanted a return on investment, I'd say it's going to be Tennessee, and then a team that's not even on your odds sheet, and that's Alabama. Tennessee might be the most talented team in college basketball. All right, Tennessee, they've got 2 of everything. They've got great size and athleticism in their front court. They've got experience. They've got a physical backcourt. Santiago Vesky's starting to shoot the basketball well. Right now, they're number 1 in the country in defensive efficiency over the last 7 games, but they're top 10 in offensive efficiency, which is where they've struggled. They're starting to shoot the ball better, get better flow. Their backcourt is experienced. They can play big. They can play small. Josiah James just got back, who's a really important player for them. A left-hander that can play the 4, 3, 2, or even the 1. So I would say Tennessee, and then the team that's not on your board is Alabama. Alabama, the 1 team that beat Houston. Alabama has incredible depth. They're top 12 in defensive efficiency. They play at warp speed. Brandon Miller, their freshman, reminds me of Kevin Durant. He's probably the best freshman in the country. They've got a dynamic freshman guard, Jaden Bradley. Doesn't need to score. He just distributes it. Noah Clowney is a very, very good front court player. They protect the front of the rim. I'd say Tennessee and Alabama, kind of a little bit like a football thing. The SEC, the top of the SEC in basketball is no different than the top of the SEC in football right now.
Now, you can also wager on who wins the Wooden Award. And Zach Edey right now is favored Is that who you feel is going to win the Wooden Award, or is there another player out there that you have your eye on?
Right now, he is the Wooden Award winner, but things change, and the guy that I think is on the outside looking in, but I think can make a run is Jalen Wilson. Jalen Wilson plays for Kansas. Kansas has, the one loss to Tennessee, but this is a Kansas team. They run the Big 12, and the Big 12 is the toughest conference in college basketball, top to bottom. There's no rocket chair games, but Jalen Wilson, to watch him grow, develop, put his name in the draft twice, pulled it back out, has embraced not only being back, but basically being a leader, averaging about 20 and 10, shooting about 35 from the three. He's the focal point of this Kansas team. He's having an Ochai Agbaji type leadership role. And remember the year that Agbaji had last year. And this Kansas team is another team that's for real. I don't have a dominating front court player, but KJ Adams Jr. plays so stinking hard. Grady Dick, we know, is a great shooter, and they have a terrific point guard, DeJuan Harris. And Jalen Wilson is the guy that makes it all happen. And if they happen to win the Big 12 and make a deep run, I would suspect that, in my gut, that Jalen Wilson will compete with Zach Edey. But Zach Edey's a joke, man. I mean, like, the dude, he plays Nerf basketball. It's a joke. You saw him last night. And he's starting to pass out of double teams, so really impressive.
All right, before we let you go, you're going to start traveling next Saturday for College Game Day. And we've seen some really great locations for our football College Game Day, right? Appalachian State, Montana State, Jackson State. What are a few of the cities that you're dying to have a pit stop at for College Game Day coming up?
Yeah, obviously the normals. Obviously, Fog Island's great. Obviously, Rupp Arena's great. Cameron's great. The Dean Dome's great. But I'd like to still go maybe to San Diego State. That place is just absolutely rocks. We went to watch the San Diego State BYU game when we were out for the Armed Forces Classic. That was fun. I think going out to the Kennel in Gonzaga would be a lot of fun. I mean, just that environment, the ownership, the passion. Then finally, maybe, if we don't do those two, maybe going out to Arkansas and Bud Walton Arena. They've got a lot of energy and passion around that program. But, we're fortunate. We get a chance to sit in the best seats in the best, to the best games. And none of them are bad. But I know when I was at Virginia Tech and I was the head coach of Virginia Tech, we had a College Game Day. And going to a new arena, a fresh place where there's energy, where it's appreciated, where people are excited about it, always fun. A couple years back, the year of the pandemic, before the pandemic actually officially hit, we were at Dayton. And we went into their old gymnasium where they play volleyball now. And there's about 4,000 people in there. It was a blast. So sometimes going to a new venue, kind of like what football's been able to do, has been fun. Even if we go to a new venue and then get in a plane and fly to another arena to do our primetime game. But I think it would be fun to go to somewhere different this year.
Absolutely. This time of year, Seth, it's kind of bittersweet for me, right? The NFL season dwindling down because we know the playoffs are right around the corner. But I get really excited because March Madness is one of my favorite times of the year, and looking forward to having you on Bet again, of course, in the next coming months. Seth, thank you so much.
Thanks, Anita. Appreciate it.
You got it. We go from Seth to Eric Moody, who joins Bet. Eric, sit tight. You and I are going to break down Saturday. We've got two, not one, but two games on Saturday. Let's listen in. Adam Teicher, who does a phenomenal job covering the Kansas City Chiefs. We know that's game number one in Las Vegas. Let's listen in on how Kansas City is handling this week's matchup.
Travis Kelce barely waited for me to finish the question when I asked him whether it was any more difficult for the Chiefs to prepare for this week's game against the Raiders than any other game. 1,000% was his succinct answer. But Kelce and his Chiefs teammates know the importance of beating the Raiders. They can lock up the AFC's number one playoff seed with a victory, and Kelce said that's always a goal for the Chiefs heading into any season. Now, the Chiefs have played 9 AFC playoff games here at Arrowhead Stadium with Patrick Mahomes as their starting quarterback, and they're 7-2 in those games, illustrating the importance for the Chiefs of playing those games right here in Kansas City.
All right, so Eric, it's our turn to do a deeper dive and feed the people some plays for Saturday action. And as we know, Kansas City, now they're favored by 9. The over-under is at 52.5, playing in Las Vegas against the Raiders. How are you playing this, Eric?
You know what? I'm looking at the player prop market on this, Anita, and I love Patrick Mahomes in this game to go over 319.5 passing yards. And so you look at Mahomes. He heads into Saturday's game with 5,048 passing yards on the season. That's only 429 yards shy of Peyton Manning's 2013 record. Look at Mahomes. He's the front runner to win the MVP award this year. And what better way to cap off an MVP caliber season, than to have a masterful performance against this Las Vegas Raiders defense that gives up the 4th most passing yards per game, but to also break Peyton Manning's record from 2013. And the Chiefs control their own destiny here. If they get the win, they're going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. Mahomes has averaged 315 passing yards per game this season. It just so happens that he's played 9 games against the Raiders in his career, and he's averaged 315 passing yards per game in those matchups. I really love Mahomes here. I think he's going to put together a dominant performance. And I have a strong belief that he'll surpass the prop number, but I think he's really gunning for that Peyton Manning record. So I love Mahomes here.
Yeah, it's one thing I do look at in Week 18 are those incentives, and I look at those prop bets. So I'm with you with Patrick Mahomes. As much as you love Patrick Mahomes, I love Jarrett Stidham. I love Jarrett Stidham coming out of college when the Patriots drafted him and was really disappointed with how his career fizzled out. And last week, he starts quarterbacking for the Raiders, passes for over 300, total of over 500 yards against the 49ers, arguably one of the best, if the not best defense in the NFL. Yeah. So there's a lot of incentive here for the Raiders. Even though they can't play to get into the postseason, I think Josh McDaniels wants folks to realize this second go at a head coaching position, he is deserving. Also, you've got Josh Jacobs on my shirt. He wants to make sure he wins that rushing title. He's already got a few more yards ahead of Nick Chubb. And also, Davante Adams, he's got 2 more receiving touchdowns than Travis Kelce. I think he wants to make sure he ends the season with more receiving touchdowns. Here are some of my prop bets as well. Davante Adams, anytime touchdown. Like I said, he wants to end the season with the most receiving touchdowns of any wide receiver in the NFL. And Jerick McKinnon, give me an anytime touchdown for him as well. He has 8 touchdowns in the last 5 games. Man, let's make it at least 9 or 10 in the last 6. Why not? He's been utilized big time in the passing game. I also like Josh Jacobs over rushing yards, but that number has not hit the slate as of yet. Now we're going to break down the evening game as well. So Eric, please hold tight, because we've got Mike DiRocco who's coming in. He covers the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Mike, welcome into Bet. First things first, this is a Jags team. They started the season 2-6. At one point in time, they lost 5 straight, and now they're 1 win away from representing the AFC South in the postseason. So at what point in time of the season did that light go on, right? And this team and these players said, oh, okay, this is what we need to do to win some football games. When did that happen?
Well, it's really tied to Trevor Lawrence's turnaround, and that came at the end of October after they had lost 5 consecutive games. They lost that last game in London. Trevor threw 2 interceptions, 1 in the end zone on a play that he threw an interception in the end zone against the Texans earlier in the year. It was a terrible throw. Then he threw one at the end of the game, too, when they could have had a 2-minute drill, and it just ended the 2-minute drill right there. After the game, he's in the locker room thinking, I don't need to feel like this anymore. I can't play like this anymore. I need to start playing and start becoming the quarterback that I know I am. And since then, he's been on fire, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's second in the NFL in passer rating since November began, and he leads the league in completion percentage since November began. And I know that he's listed as questionable, by the way, on this week's injury report, but he's definitely playing against the Titans on Saturday night.
So, Mike, last season, this team ended 3-14. Urban Meyer, a huge disaster. In the offseason, they hired Doug Peterson. They spent a ton of money in free agency. With that being said, what do you think was their biggest addition this season to help this turnaround?
You know, it's easy to point to some of the players like Christian Kirk or Evan Ingram, Ofoye Oluokun, but honestly, it's head coach Doug Peterson. This franchise was an absolute mess last year. There was nothing but dysfunction. The attitude inside the building, inside the locker room, it was just awful. So when they brought Peterson in, the instant credibility of him having won a Super Bowl sort of earned those players' trust. He changed the entire culture. Now you've got these guys in here talking about playoffs, even when they were 3-7, even when they were coming off that loss in London to the Broncos, they believed because of Doug Peterson. And not to mention, he's a heck of an offensive play caller as well, and that's been completely over these last 6 games.
So these two teams met about, a month ago. Jacksonville won by 2 touchdowns, but they allowed over 7 yards per carry to Derrick Henry, who, by the way, last week was a bye week for him, right? He got rested up. Tennessee's rolling with Dobbs, so hoping that Jacksonville's defense will respect the pass. How are they going to stop or at least contain or lessen the number of yards per carry for Derrick Henry in this matchup, which I think is going to be key?
Yeah, he's the key to the Titans' offense, no question. They're 26-7 when he rushes for 100 or more yards. And he had 96 against the Jaguars in the first quarter of that game. But what happened after that was the Jaguars got some turnovers, including one where linebacker Shaquille Quarterman caused Derrick Henry to fumble on the sideline. It was a massive hit, and that was sort of the play that turned that whole game around for the Jaguars. So the deal is they've got to gang tackle, and they've got to keep him from getting to that second level, because that's when you've got Derrick Henry against defensive backs, and that's generally a battle that Derrick Henry wins. But the Jaguars are also warning, hey, we can't over-concentrate on him, because that's going to leave us vulnerable in the back end. And, that's not going to be a good thing with a young quarterback. If you can give him some success early, then things could get rolling in a way that you don't want. And then you've got Derrick Henry going as well, and it could be a long night.
Mike, thank you so much. Great insight, and enjoy the game tomorrow night. Really do appreciate it. We go back, of course, to Eric Moody, who joins us to break down this game. Jacksonville, they are favored by 6.5. The over-under is 40. Not a big over-under total there. What's your play here?
There's 2 plays in this game I like, Anita, and I do like prop bets here. So Derrick Henry, over 89.5 rushing yards. So Joshua Dobbs will be back under center, played well against the Cowboys, but he may have a less than 100% Traylon Burks. And so why not lean heavily on the top offensive playmaker that you have, and that's Derrick Henry. Someone who's averaged in his 12 career games going up against the Jaguars, 105 rushing yards per game. So I think he's going to have a dominant performance and try to propel this team to a victory. I also like Evan Ingram in this matchup on the Jaguars side, over 49.5 receiving yards. And he had a monster game against the Titans back in Week 14 with 162 receiving yards. But one thing that's really intriguing, Anita, you look at Ingram. He needs 61 receiving yards to earn a $200,000 bonus. Now, Ingram is a player who has an expiring contract, and that money is really important for him going into next season. So I think he'll be targeted early and often in this matchup. So I like Evan Ingram also over 49.5 receiving yards as well.
I like it. So I have a small lean towards the Tennessee Titans at 6.5. I do believe the Jags win, but I do like Tennessee getting the points. I think it's going to come down to 3 points, 4 points, something like that. Also, Tennessee's a really good first half team, so I like Tennessee plus 3.5 in the first half. But my favorite bet, very lockstep with you, talking about incentives, Zay Jones. You're talking about $250,000 to almost $500,000 as well on the table for receptions and receiving yards. So I'm going over on both those totals for Zay Jones. Over 4.5 receiving yards, over 53.5 receptions. I'm sorry, over 4.5 receptions, over 43.5 receiving yards for Zay Jones. 115 targets so far this season. Great chemistry between him and Trevor Lawrence. And also the wideouts have more success against the Tennessee Titans secondary than slot wide receivers. Another reason why I like Zay Jones. All right, let's talk about our Sunday's best, as we always like to get dressed on Sunday. With that being said, in the NFL, what's your favorite play on Sunday?
I don't know. One play that I'm drawn to like a moth to the flame, Anita, is the Detroit Lions. I know they're dogs, 5 points, but I just like them against the Green Bay Packers. Now, I know the Packers are playing at Lambeau, but you look at this Lions team, they've played much better on the road here recently. And I think the entire NFL fandom has been captivated by Dan Campbell and this team ever since Hard Knocks. And so this is a team that I have a lot of confidence in. I think their run defense will be key in this matchup. If they can get Green Bay out of their comfort zone, and that's Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, and have Aaron Rodgers play hero ball, which I'm not confident that's a good thing considering how Rodgers has played this season and the injuries. I really like the Lions here because you look at Dan Campbell, anytime he's been a dog of 4 or more points against the spread, he's 14-4. And so I really like this Lion teams here. If you're looking for a plus bet, I would back the Lions. So that's going to be an exciting game. They'll play hard either way, whether Seattle wins or not, to be the spoiler to Green Bay. So I love the Lions here.
My favorite play on Sunday is the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of motivation here for a number of reasons, right? So I'll lay the 2.5 with the Pittsburgh Steelers at home, going up against the Cleveland Browns, which, by the way, Jadeveon Clowney did not even make the trip, by the way. So that bodes well for them. But this is a Pittsburgh Steelers team. Their playoff hopes are still alive. On top of that, Mike Tomlin does not want to finish with his first ever losing season. I think players are going to play really hard for him there. On top of that, better defense, especially against the run. With TJ Watt back, teams are averaging less than 4 yards per carry, so I think that's going to limit Nick Chubb. You've got Deshaun Watson and his offense. All the money that Cleveland has spent on Deshaun Watson, only averaging 13 points a game. And also, this is a Pittsburgh Steelers team, second best interception rate in the NFL, again, since TJ Watt has returned. So my favorite play is the Pittsburgh Steelers, -2.5. Eric, thank you so much. Have a fantastic weekend. Always great having you on Bet, my friend.
Oh, no, likewise. Looking forward to the slate this weekend. Until next time.
You got it. As always, we end it with, before I let you go, we've got to talk about the national championship, do we not? TCU going up against Georgia. Now, I do believe Georgia wins, but I do love TCU getting the points. I think it's going to be a close one. How many times, time and time again, are we doubting these Purple Frogs? Not anymore. I wouldn't be surprised if TCU wins, but I do like them getting the points for a number of reasons. Max Duggan, of course. I feel that he is the better quarterback. Also, I think in the passing game, it's hard for Georgia to get that pass rush with no Nolan Smith. And also, I do believe that they're going to be able to have a lot of success in the long passes, 15 yards and more, where Duggan is 43%. Completion percentage rate. I also like over in rushing yards for him at 28.5, and also Quentin Johnston over 87.5 receiving yards. I think he has a big night. I think he puts up at least 100. So again, TCU getting the points and some prop bets there for you as well. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to Bet. Really appreciate it. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the Saturday, Sunday games, and of course the national championship on Monday night. We'll see you next week.